Wedbush's Dan Ives. Good to see you. I appreciate you being here. You say that any lingering fears around AMD should now be thrown out the window. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, look, this for Lisa Su and AMD, I mean, this brings them right into the AI revolution. And I think that wasn't factored into the stock. You know, it's part of why it's in the Ives AI 30. I think this is actually just the start for AMD because this next stage of the AI revolution takes hold. OpenAI, what they're doing here, I think other companies are noticing, and I think this is just the start of more tech players making these moves.
What's it mean for Nvidia, do you think, big picture?
Look, there's still only one godfather of AI, and that's Jensen and Nvidia. I think what you're seeing is this is a validation moment for AI in terms of where use cases are going. And it's my view. I mean, Nvidia is a $250 stock as this all plays out. Now, granted, muted reaction today, but I think it shows this AI arms race is playing out. And you're talking with Ed about where we are in 1999, 2000. Scott, I think, and I've talked, we're in a 1996 moment today, not a 1999 moment.
I mean, what kind of moat premium, if you will, do you think is in Nvidia's stock?
Look, I think there's a moat premium that's in there, but the reality is 90% of the AI spend they're going to get. Now, granted, ultimately, AMD could probably get 10% of it. Maybe now that's more 15, 20%. But the reality is demand to supply is still 10, 12 to 1 for NVIDIA chips. And that's a real moat. And that's why I think this is going to be a $5 trillion market cap. And ultimately, you're going to see more and more tech players. Stocks are going to continue to move higher. I think the street is still massively underestimating the spending on the AI revolution.
Why are you so convinced that we're in 96 and not 99? When you hear somebody like Paul Tudor Jones say it feels exactly like 1999, I don't know whether we'll actually replay it exactly, but I think all the ingredients are in place.
Because as someone myself that covered tech stocks back in the 90s to where we are today, spending all my time around the world in Asia, seeing the chips, seeing demand, we're in the second inning of a 9-inning game. I'm not saying you're not going to have some froth that's out there, but I think the street's still underestimating the spending that probably by 30, 35%. And that's what OpenAI sees. That's what AMD sees. That's what the Godfather Jensen sees. And I think and that's why Nadella, and I think from Palantir to others, this is just the next phase of the AI revolution. That's why it's 1996 as this fourth industrial revolution plays out.
If you're right, I mean, then there's like Lisa Shallot of Morgan Stanley who suggests we're in the 7th inning because the AI spend, all this CapEx, you can't possibly be in the 2nd inning with the kind of money that's being thrown around. I read the quote earlier from Stacy Rasgon of Sam Altman. OpenAI has the ability to either crash the global economy for a decade or take us to the promised land. I know what side of that argument you're clearly on, but there's a credible argument to say that you're underestimating where we are in the cycle.
Yeah, and Scott, to that point, I'd say, look, 3% of enterprises in the U.S. have gone down the AI path. None in Europe. You look at Asia ex-China, minimal. Sovereigns are just starting to play out like we've seen in Middle East and UK. Think about it, as more and more enterprises, rest of the world plays out. Guess what? For the first time in 30 years, the U.S. is ahead of China when it comes to tech. So it's U.S. tech that's going to win. Now, granted, the circular in terms of OpenAI, NVIDIA, AMD, and some of the worries there. Look, I just view it like this. For OpenAI, for every dollar they put into AMD, they'll get $12 to $15. NVIDIA, the same thing. And I think that's why this is more of a 1996 moment than a 1999 moment, despite obviously a lot of the worries. And that's why we think NASDAQ 25,000, NASDAQ 30,000. These are going to be some of the conversations over the next 1, 2, 3 years.
Let's leave it with looking at Apple for a minute. I know it's a turn, but the stock is approaching a closing high. A closing record high. It's not going to get it today, barring a turnaround. But nonetheless, it still feels like the odd person out in this conversation. What really changes that?
Yeah, I think it's about Google and Gemini, because once they won DOJ from the Google side, now that could that be a candlelight moment, between Cook and Sundar? Can you actually now start to see a deal on the table? As well as also, this is an upgrade cycle that under the radar, no one was expecting. It's going to be a lot better than expected. Numbers going to have to move higher. But it comes down to now, the coast is clear. They now need to double down, ink that Google partnership, and I think that ultimately sends the stock. Ultimately, would have a stock with a 3 in front of it.